Welcome back to the Overland Legend. In this video I share this epic expedition in 1998 to celebrate 50 years of Land Rover that covered more than 9,000 kilometers around South Africa and featured over 150 Land Rovers of all types. The original video was produced by organizer Ina Cotton, and most of the narration in this video was written by Ina and participants Daniel and Julia Oppenheim. The original video has been split into 3 episodes, and in this, the second episode, we rejoin the group in Underberg as they head up Sani Pass into Lesotho and travel through Lesotho down into the Transkei, spend time on the Transkei coast before heading to Hogsback in the Eastern Cape. Sani Pass, situated in the Drakensberg Mountains, between Lesotho and South Africa, is one of the most beautiful passes in the Southern Hemisphere and became well known in 4x4 circles when the annual Roof of Africa rally used to be run there some years ago. Although the first motor vehicle to negotiate the pass was a Jeep, Land Rovers were used extensively to open up and maintain trade with the interior. The dirt road is good by Lesotho standards, but the gradient is quite formidable at 1 in 6, and everyone was looking forward to some real off-roading at last. Four other Series 1s had joined us in Durban just for the pass. They helped us to tune our Series 1 for the altitude, and 20 vehicles eventually crossed the border and started up the pass. In some spots we had to engage low range first in our Series 1, but the scenery was so magnificent that I hardly noticed. There were waterfalls everywhere, and around every bend in the road there would be another beautiful view, and there were many bends. Taba and Klenya, Black Mountain, the highest mountain in southern Africa, was towering on our right at 3,482 meters. Having had a beer in the highest pub in Africa, we said goodbye to the 4 Series 1s and prepared ourselves for some serious rough driving, as heavy summer rains over the last 2 years had caused major damage to the roads. Organisers Ina and Terry Cotton give their account of planning the trip and how it's been so far.
How have you found the trip so far? Has it worked out well, your plans?
Oh yes, most of it. The 2 bits that didn't work out well was the weather.
Yeah.
Once we had solid mist in Sehlabatebi, and the other time we had solid wind the other day.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, just the 2 days out of a total of 4 weeks is not bad.
That's excellent. What part of the trip have you enjoyed the most?
I think probably the crossing of the Lesotho. It was really rough. The most disgusting roads has had my pleasure to drive.
And how's your vehicle held up?
Excellently, I'm absolutely thrilled with it.
How old is your vehicle?
41 years now.
And when did you restore it?
Restored it over the previous 3 years. Finished it in September last year. Basically for this trip. Took us a couple of months to build up the inside because we had to try and fit in as much as we could into a very small space. And I think we've done quite well with it.
Do you find speed a problem?
Yes, we go fast, too often. I complain constantly.
One of our problems is that we always get the campsite after everybody else, and very often the best spots are taken. But that's not really a problem, but we get there late, so we can't really spend an hour or two looking around the campsite as we had planned to do.
Has this given you an opportunity to see South Africa all over again and in a different light?
Yes, certainly it has, because we've been to some spots that we haven't been to before. Not very many of those.
There was Murray's farm with the
Murray's
river that
farm
we had
as
to
well.
cross. That was fun and that was great and new.
Water pouring in up to the dash into the
Floorboards.
floorboard. So that was quite exciting, and I think a lot of the people on the trip have really had their first experience of proper off-roading.
Lesotho certainly has the best rough driving available in South Africa. Or to quote Terry, "These are the worst roads it has been my pleasure to drive over." At Koma Koma Bridge we found the Orange River, the same one that opens into the sea at Alexander Bay on the west coast. It was swollen and washing quite strongly over the low water bridge. Our campsite was on the other side, being one of the few level spots in Lesotho. So Brian walked across to gauge the depth and strength of the stream, and then took the plunge and drove across. Terry had to hold Chucky, our Series 1 steering wheel, on full lock to the right to counteract the power of the stream. Menoaneng Pass at 3,030 meters and Sehonghong or White Pass in particular made men out of the remaining boy drivers we still had in our group. The driving certainly made a lasting impression on everyone and was one of the highlights of this tour. The gradient and hairpin bends were exasperated by the extremely bad state of the track. Boulders and holes make a wheel drop another foot or so on an already steep gradient. Daniel tells us about the journey through Lesotho as he writes, "The following day we forged our way deeper into the mountains of Lesotho, a truly magical place. Everywhere one looks there are magnificent vistas, peaks beyond rocky peaks, deep valleys and rushing rivers, and the stillness and silence that one only finds in the high mountains. We drove only 100 kilometers that day, crawling over 3 major passes, and it took us a challenging 7.5 hours. The driving was not technically difficult, but the roads changed so quickly, and there was no barrier between us and the sheer drop-offs on either side. One lapse in concentration could have been fatal. Kermit was in 4-wheel drive low first or second gear all day, leaning up to 35 degrees side to side. A rock and roll ride, to be sure. Further along the route, the track which runs along the river had been washed away, and the way to go is simply along the boulder-strewn river for several kilometers. Matabang Pass, although long and steep, was in a good condition and posed no problem to most people, except for Vota and Almarie, the South Africans in their Series 2 long wheelbase, recently rebuilt and still being finished en route. Their Series 2 was overheating. He jumped out every few minutes with a 25-litre can of water and poured some over the engine. The Series 1's fuel pump worked in stops and starts, so we kept him company. A thunderstorm on the other side of the pass turned the track into a river, and the going became even slower. When driving in Lesotho, one does not ask how far it is, but how long it takes. Although we had only 127 kilometers to travel from Koma Koma to Sehlabatebi National Park, it took about 9 hours.
Ons sit vas in die water Het reënkat en honde, Johan is sopnat. Ons kan hier uit allemaal probeer help. Daar spin. Kyk moedeloos toe, want hulle staan agter ons, niemand kan daar af.
On the exceedingly bad track inside the park, we found Daniel stuck in a rut, which had become too deep and muddy. Marius, in his 110 diesel, towed him out, and we arrived at camp just in time for a sundowner. Sehlabatebi is Lesotho's only national park, and the views and scenery are spectacular, even in the mist and rain, which often occurs. Daniel gives his account of the evening. That night we slept at Sehlabatebi National Park. Our accommodations was a comfortable lodge with a few luxurious rooms by recent standards, a bath and hot water, a communal kitchen and a dining room and a lounge, furnished with a comfy overstuffed chairs and a fireplace. As it had started to rain, we sat in the lounge, warm and dry, with others of the group, writing, reading, repairing CB radio equipment, and resting after 2 hard days of driving. We awoke to a white, misty morning on our departure day, and travelled through thick mist until we descended from the high mountains to Matatiele in the Transkei. Refreshed after our night stop in Elliot, where Ian and Jana joined us in their classic Range Rover, we continued to the rolling grassed hills characteristic of the Transkei. Round huts are painted white or blue on the side facing the sun, and tin roofs are replacing thatch. We stopped for lunch near President Mandela's home village and the new local residence. On arrival at Sithole Mission Station, which is where the track ends on the map, we were swamped by young prospective guides who were all eager to show us the track to Mbolombo Beach. The Transkei coast is rocky, wild and rugged, interspersed with pretty sandy beaches. The locals live everywhere, they even dip their cattle in the sea. And as there are very few formal campsites, we were in the center of attention for a while. I was very fortunate to be able to join part of this tour, and the section that I joined was exactly here in the Transkei. I arrived a day after the party had arrived in Mbolombo Point, and with the GPS points and navigation, I was able to navigate there, and we joined the tour for a couple of days. Because of the heavily populated and sparsely covered surroundings, the usual rough camp method of going to the toilet, taking a spade into the bush and digging a hole, could not be employed, and we had to make another plan. Jochum had a camping toilet seat, and Willie had a tent, which they pitched and then mounted the toilet seat on 2 sand ladders over a hole dug in the sand. A pile of sand was at hand with which to flush the toilet, and voila, a toilet. Driving over the hills of the Transkei is quite an experience, as they are very steep with a soft grassy surface which is muddy underneath. Dr. Chris was afraid he would get stuck on the steep rise from the camp, so Brian towed him at high speed up and over the top, with trailer bouncing crazily at the back. Daniel and Julia Oppenheim had shipped their Series 2A short wheelbase all the way from San Francisco in the USA specifically for this tour, and they explain why they were so excited about taking part.
Well, we're both Land Rover fanatics, kind of crazy like everyone else on this tour, and thanks to your brother Brian's webpage we discovered 2 years ago, we started to get interested in it, and when it was 45 days long, and got more and more interested in it the longer it got. So.
Well, we both always wanted to come to Africa, and it just seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime to come with our Land Rover.
What's your Land Rover's name?
This is Kermit, named because of its little bug eye headlights and the green nature of it.
What part of the trip has struck you most?
The diversity. I think I've never been exposed to so many different types of people and so many different geographies since in basically the tour has been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
To be in downtown Durban one day and Lesotho the next night, sleeping at 9,000 feet is just phenomenal. And then Indian Ocean and Kruger and animals in Kruger. I mean, as much as a tourist trap Kruger must be to the locals, for us it was just overwhelming. I mean, to see 4 out of the big 5 and then the next day see the 5th was just it was phenomenal. Makuzi, Shlani, those were just great experiences for us.
And seeing them in their natural habitat, just wild and free, it's just really spectacular.
And the Dafra here is really something.
Shixini Beach is further south and was easily reached, with Alan guiding us on his GPS. The problem is not that there are no roads and tracks, but rather that there are too many, usually not signposted. A few days of relaxation were welcome after a couple of weeks of pretty long driving, and people took the opportunity to walk and swim and do some washing. There was also some very necessary maintenance that had to be done to the vehicles, like checking all the bolts and nuts on the body and undercarriage after all of the very, very rough roads. Terry, Billy, Dave and Chris caught cob, stumpnose and grunter, which provided a lovely fried fish dinner that night. Although we had sunshine, a gale force wind blew for 2 days, so that we were not too sad to move inland to Hogsback Forestry Camp, a lovely peaceful retreat in the forests, planted by the British settlers more than a century ago.
But I think that what I enjoy most is the people. It's nice to be with different kinds of people thrown together without knowing each other and getting to know each other in different circumstances, and that's very nice.
And that's where we leave this tour group for this episode, as they head out of Hogsback down towards the Western Cape and visit the southernmost point in South Africa before going via Cape Town, heading up to the Underberg, where they have a fantastic potjie competition, and then head on towards the west coast and the Richtersveld on this amazing journey. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and like this video and look out for the next episodes.